You are listening to the Freedom Podcast with Van Moody. Our desire is that you begin to live in freedom every day. Freedom in your mind, freedom in your finances, freedom from the external pressures of life. Prepare to be transformed as we seek to be free, mind, body, and soul. Let's get started.
Hey friends, welcome to the Freedom Podcast. It is a joy to join you as we start this incredible new year. Now, if you're new to the Freedom Podcast, you must understand that every month we cover a variety of topics on this incredible podcast that pertain to living your best life, a life of freedom, purpose, and fulfillment. And every single month we have a podcast episode dedicated to financial freedom, because we understand that financial literacy and financial empowerment is not only the new civil rights movement, it is one area that is indispensable to living your best life. And every month I am honored to be joined by my brother, my co-host with the most, Pastor George Thompson, all the way from LA. He is the money maven, and I am honored that he is with me on this podcast as we get into financial freedom. And we are ready. It's 2024, George.
Yes.
And we are ready to kick the year off right. So we're going to talk about on this podcast episode important things that you need to do so that this can be your best year financially. George, welcome, brother, all the way from LA.
I am so glad to be here, and I'm so excited about 2024. We did a lot in 2023, and I'm excited about 2024. Let's go.
Me too. I first of all want to give a special shout out and thanks to all of our Freedom Podcast partners. This podcast exists because of you, because of your generosity, because of your willingness to partner with us. We are able to do this podcast, and we've got some really exciting things lined up for 2024. We are expanding the scope and impact of this podcast because of our Freedom Podcast partners. And then also, partners, don't forget, we've got some bonus content. Every episode, we've got bonus content that only you will receive because you are a partner. So I want to thank all of our partners for helping us to continue this incredible podcast. So, George, we got to jump into it, brother. Where should we start when we think about having this year be our best year financially?
All right. So I just want to let you know, as we're coming in 2024, can you just give yourselves a hand just for coming through 2023? So that's actually how we start off 2024 is this. You know, we always sit down and say we're going to set our goals, which we're going to do. Before we do that, we have to look back at 2023. And then again, I would tell you to write it down, but then also I know some of us, we type things down, is first, look at how good God has been in 2023. So write down at least 5 things you're thankful for. There's things that I sat down with we were planning in 2023. For 2024, I sat down with certain people I have at the church, at Faithful Central. I sat down with certain people with my financial planning firm. I sat down with other people that do help me with my content, different areas. And we said, let's look at what went very, very well and the things we're blessed about. At least 5 things that went very, very well. Then second, write down 5 things that you want to change and do differently. I think we also had a podcast on this where we said things that we want to change that we did last year, that this year we want to do just a little bit differently in 2024. And then we want to have those. That's how we want to walk through those. So that's the first thing we want to do is be thankful for 2023. And then we're going to look at what adjustments we're going to make in 2024. So that's how we start.
Yeah, I love that, George, because, so many times we jump right into the planning phase of, all right, I got to jump into my New Year's resolutions. But I think reflection is really important, to take time to think deeply, reflect, look back. What am I thankful for? What did we do well?
Right.
But then what are the things that we didn't do well?
Right.
So when we start talking about the things that we want to change financially, where should we start? Now, George, I know you got a list and I got a list because this is a topic that's really near and dear to our heart. So I want to let you go first. You're the money maven. Give us the list of what are some of the main things that ought to be a part of our planning to make 2024 the best year financially we've ever had.
First of all, as you know, as stewardship, can everybody hold up 4 fingers, 4 fingers, 4 fingers? We want to look at 4 areas right now that we want to start planning in and making changes in. And then I'm going to end with a high five, but I'm going to start with 4 areas. The first thing is that how well we manage. I know this is not financial, but it is financial. How well we managed our time. See, God bless you in 4 areas: time, then He bless you with talent, and then the temple, your body, and then fourth treasure, your finances. So one of the things is number one is time. There's 86,400 seconds in a day. We got to look at how well we manage that. Remember, we looked at 2023. What are certain things we're going to do that are going to help us be more successful in that area that we want to actually walk through? So that's one. Then the second one, and then we'll go a little deeper into these a little bit later, is the talent and skills. That many times there are certain things, remember, that people maybe want to go to school, they want to have certain things. Look at the talent and the skill that you have, and then how you're going to do certain things for that to glorify God. But then also you may want to monetize certain things. There's certain things that you do, and I'm not picking on anybody. They're called a hobby. Like you're doing something, and you think you're a great cook, and you say, I'm open a catering business. But look, let's really look at how that's going to work and how you're going to do that. And then third is your body. Is like, we really got to talk about our health and look at certain health goals that you have. Are you going to work? How are we going to work out? Are we going to walk more? Are we going to drink more water? Like, what are we going to do? And we're going to have these actually written out. We're going to walk through these. And then fourth is treasure. And then I'm going to kick it right over to you, is finances. There's certain financial things that you want to do. And I just want to let you know, I'm ready to walk through all of these with you. But I'm going to give you the first shot at that. And then I'm going to fill in the blanks. But everybody knows I'm going to start mentioning words that involve budgets and debt and all those things and investments. But I want to kind of go through finance. I'm going to kick it over to you and let you say, give yours, and then I'll just fill them in. But everybody, time, temple, talent, treasure.
That's so good, George. Time, temple, talent, treasure. I often say you won't find any more time, but you can prioritize time. I'm sure you've heard people say, man, there's not enough hours in the day. There's a fixed set of time.
Right.
You can't control time. I even think managing time is an oxymoron, but what we can do is we can prioritize our time. I love that. We can prioritize our time, our temple, our talent, and our treasure. So let's talk about our treasure, because I've got really 8 things that I want to share. I may not get through all of them. Maybe we'll get through 5, and maybe with our partners, George, we'll give the rest in bonus content. But I want you and I to just kind of unpack these, because I am a firm believer, and I know you are, that if we get these 8 things right, and there's a lot that we can unpack with these, but these are the things that will set up your year to be one of the best it's ever been financially if we do this right. So I love to start, number 1, with recognizing and remembering. Some people need to recognize, others need to remember that God is our source. A lot of people come into the new year, George, and you know this, we say, okay, all right, I want to buy a house, or I want to be able to save more, or I want to invest more, or I want to make a certain amount of money. And we come in with these plans of the things that we want to do financially. And oftentimes we act like we have to make it happen ourselves. Now, there is personal responsibility involved in this. But at the same time, it is really important for us to recognize and remember. And I keep stressing that, because there are some individuals who believe falsely, incorrectly, that, they are the captain of their fate, that they pulled themselves up by their own bootstraps. And the truth of the matter is, everything we are and will ever be is because of God. And so for those of you who don't recognize that, that's the first step. Or for those of you who maybe know that, but you've forgotten it. Maybe you've been making your New Year's resolutions and it's all about you. Well, I want to encourage you to remember that God is your source. My favorite verse on this is Deuteronomy 8:18 that says, but remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth. So God is our source, and it has to start there.
Right. And I just, and I love how you utilize that scripture, because, I've ministered that. And then also when you contextualize that, you're talking about like that God gives it to you, so that he gives you the power. And then like, if you, and then you can go so much higher if your purpose is just not, it's just not you. See, if
Yes.
it's about the whole group, then it's helping blessing more people. That's how the blessings work better. You see, in other words, like God blesses you to be a blessing. You always hear me say that on Sunday, and then also another scripture is that my God shall supply all my needs, and then it
Yeah.
says according to His riches and glory. That means God already has it. He's just going to give it to you,
Come on.
and then you got to be a good steward over it.
Yes.
Because if you're faithful over a few things, He makes you ruler over many. So that's
Yeah.
how you actually build generational wealth, is that you do good with what you have, and
Yeah.
then your faith, and then you continue to grow with it.
Well, and you know what, George, we've talked about this in a previous podcast episode that biblically we're stewards, and a steward is a manager, right? We're not an owner. But
Yes.
understanding that is connected to recognizing and remembering that God is your source. If you think that you are the source, then you think you are an owner. And then sometimes, you can feel like, well, I can take liberties. I created this and I'll just create
Right.
more. But when you recognize that God is your source and that He is holding you accountable for how you manage what He's given you, well, then
Right.
that changes your whole mindset and your whole approach to money.
Right. Then you don't have to worry as much. You see, if God is your source, when you learn, everyone, let me free you real quick. If you're saying God is your source and everything else is a resource, then you aren't worried about looking at a man. Look, this person gives you a job. If you lose your job, there's another one. If you do this, if there's a resource that doesn't work, then there's another one. Because what happens is God is putting you, and He is your source, and He's just blessing you. Once we say Pops, Bishop Homer was telling a story one time where he said that a lot of time, like you're watching a channel when you're on when you have a job. And what God does is He changes the channel. So what happens is that you're watching something one day, and then what happens is God changes you to a different channel.
Mm.
That channel may also bless you more. That's why I get so excited for people, because I want you to see it in high definition. That means you were seeing things in this resolution. Now you can see it much better. What does that mean, much better? Is that you're utilizing your purpose on your job. You're utilizing your time, your temple, your talent, all works together to glorify God and your community. So that's how you do it. So, yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right. Here's the second thing that we want to talk about that will help you make this year, 2024, the best year ever. And this is going to sound simple, but it's profound. Make money honestly. So a lot of times we start looking at our financial picture or the possible financial future that we want to have. And a lot of times there is this temptation, man, if I could just get my hustle on, if I could do X, Y, and Z, if I could, and we will often be presented with all kinds of schemes. Maybe not you, maybe your cousins in them, right? Have schemes and ideas of how you can get money quickly. Well, I want to submit to you that God doesn't bless cheaters. He doesn't bless crooks. He doesn't bless deceptive people. Now, some of you may say, now, Bishop Moody or Dr. Moody, I need some word on that. Well, Proverbs 15:27 says, dishonest money brings grief to the whole family. Now, that means you can go out and you can make a whole bunch of money, but if you make it dishonestly, it's actually going to bring grief, almost like a curse or like problems to the family. And so the Bible talks a lot about honest gain. And so I just want to drop that. It may not be relevant for all of you, but I do want to just put that nugget in your heart. Maybe when you are scrolling across social media and you're seeing what looks like, a get rich quick scheme, I want you to be able to have the fortitude to see through that. Because even in Proverbs 16:11, it says the Lord demands fairness in every
Exactly.
business deal. He sets the standards. And so make money honestly. Now, George, you
Right.
probably see that in your practice a lot, right? I'm sure you
Yes.
all kinds of you
And I also
ideas.
want to say I live in Los Angeles, so everybody don't judge me, okay? But so when he talks about when you're saying, also, it just struck a chord with me when you said make money honestly. Let's look at this a different way. Let's look at something. Whenever something is made or money is made, it's a win-win. So
Yeah.
out here, there's these things where you make money, but the other person loses. You know what I mean? Like you're putting them in a more difficult situation. This is where where we want to talk to you about, just for you to think about, is that look at something where you win, where like you do something. I'll even use a loan or a mortgage or something like that, where you win and the person wins and the client wins. It's not like you took advantage of somebody in order for you to get a gain. So there's nothing wrong with showing people other products or other things, but just make sure that they're adding more value to it. So let's look at when you say like this, not only how to make it honestly, but hey, how do we all win, win, win? Um, the company wins, you win, and the person who utilizes a product wins. That's honest money.
That's so good. Hey, George, we're going to pause here for a word from other sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to get into numbers 3, 4, and 5. This is the Freedom Podcast, the Financial Freedom episode with Dr. Van Moody and the financial maven, George Thompson.
Introducing A Year to a Better You, the transformative devotional that guides you on a year-long journey of self-discovery. Each day, you will learn more about God, His Word, and yourself. A Year to a Better You features a daily devotional and a soap journal perfectly paired to help you learn more about transformation and transparency as Christ followers, your freedom and identity in Christ, and most of all, the power that you have because of His faithful love. Visit vanmoody.org today and start your journey with a new year to a better you.
All right, we're back, George, and I am super excited for us to jump into numbers 3, 4, and 5. Now, I got a whole list, and I don't know if we're going to get through all of them. Maybe we'll have to do some and some bonus content for our partners. But we talked about numbers 1 and numbers 2, critical things, key things that need to be done if you're going to make this year your best year financially. Here's number 3. This is a big one for me, George, and you may have something to say about this. Number 3 is we got to honor God first. So now we're talking about the power of tithing. So here's why this is so important, because Proverbs 3 tells us to honor the Lord with our wealth, with the first fruits of our crop, right? And then it gives us a promise. It says, and then your barns will be filled to overflowing and your vats will brim over with new wine. So here's what's interesting. When we come into a new year and we start thinking about what we want financially, how we want God to bless us, so we want more money, we want to be able to take more trips, we want to be able to save more, invest more, do this or do that. We often think about our barns being full, our vats overflowing, right? But that's the second part of this promise. The first part is if you honor God first, then God will help you to do all of these other things. And so it's important then as we lay out this year financially that we don't forget that God has to be first. I remember when my life financially began to change, and it really revolved around when I made the commitment that no matter how much money I made, God was going to be first and I was going to tithe. And I remember we do something at the worship called the 90-day tithing challenge, where we, encourage people. If you've never been a tither before, try it for 90 days, test God. And if God doesn't do what He says He's going to do in His word, let us know and we'll give you all of that money back. And the reason why we do that is because for me, when I started tithing, that was a big faith step. And I was afraid, I was fearful, because a lot of us think, man, if I'm struggling on 100%, there's no way that I'm going to be able to make it on the 90%. But tithing is such a powerful principle. In fact, George, I may have mentioned this in a previous podcast episode, but one year I went into Barnes & Noble and I went into the business section. And I looked at almost every book in the finance and business section. And you know what? Whether it was written by a believer or not, almost every single book has something in there about generosity. Because this principle of putting God first and recognizing Him as your source is just that powerful. Even non-believers had something in there about how if you're going to be successful financially, you've got to acknowledge your source. One called it, give the first back, other people called it. And really it's all different variations of this powerful principle of tithing. And so, I'll kick it over to you, but my favorite verse, because I've had people, oh, it's the big deal. Why is tithing so important? My favorite verse on this is Deuteronomy 14:23, when it says that the purpose of tithing is to teach you to always put God first in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it's all about. If you acknowledge him as your source, right? Then God says, all right, now the first of what you make, give it back to me, and I'll bless the 90%.
Right. And you're so right. And if you look at tithing and you look at what we said earlier, is when you put God first, the Bible says, as you know, in Matthew, it says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and the rest shall be added unto you. But you always put God first, because that's a matter of priority. We talked about prioritizing earlier with time, but you do that with everything: time, temple, talent, and treasure. That means you put God first financially. Because if you do the opposite, that means you try to take care of everything else, and then you say, well, God, I'm going to give you what's left over. You want God to treat you. You always want God to put you first. So what happens is we put God first. It's a matter of priority. And then that's where all the blessings flow. So also when you did the tithing challenge, those are, I see that. And that's such a blessing, because you know that God will take care of you, as you know, as God does that. And he does that because I'm pretty sure no one's ever come back and said that's a tithe consistently. They always show how God is your source. So you're actually
Absolutely. Nobody's ever come back and said, you know what, God didn't do it, give me my money back. No, he's always done it.
We've done that exact same thing, and no one's ever come back. We've actually got it the other way, where people said they started tithing, and then they started seeing that they were blessed. And then, I'm sorry, I was clapping in advance when they do this, but see, this is the part that people were blessed at when they were tithing.
Yeah.
Is that you think that everybody got blessed financially? Marriages were saved.
Yeah.
People, there were financial ones where my house was paid off. They had a job and they were getting paid. They were getting paid this. Then they said, oh, you know what? Oh yeah, now I get paid that. But then remember I told you that financial but non-financial? They started off working there, and then now they came back to me, and then we do something called job check at our church, as you well know.
I love it.
This woman came back to me after she was tithing and said, Pastor Thompson, I was number 300 and something. I was 367 the job in 2000. I'm going to say in 2021. She said, hey, I need to hire some people now. You go from looking for a job to hiring people.
Come on.
And it's because you did things by priority.
Yeah.
Somebody say, put God first.
Put God first.
And he'll take care of it. I mean, but I just want to make sure that when you tithe, that you just don't look at it like this. I'm tithing, and God, I want to. No, he's going to bless you.
Yeah.
But then do it. And then we were not going to take up the time and do this right now, but I think you're very well aware. And you know, my wife, we did everything. We could not have children, and I'm going to do everything. So we know, and we really struggled with that. And then my wife started a prayer group, and we tithed, and she tithed. And then and I think you know the story now, is that I've never had a child, everybody. I started off with children. So we were blessed. We were told we couldn't have children. We did everything, but we turned over to prayer and doing this. And I went to the hospital, Pastor Van, with 2 people, me and my wife, and came back with 4. So we were blessed with twins by 8 years later. So yeah, so that's and I went in the hospital, Pastor Van, and when I held my sons and after I saw them, I ran out of the room. And I looked at the nurse, I said, can somebody find me an atheist or anyone that doesn't believe in the power of God?
Come on.
I'm going to show them a live example today. So he can do it.
Come on. Won't he do it? Yes, he will. You're going to have me dancing over here, bro. What a testimony. All right. Hey, let's go to number 4, and let's go into what Pop calls the deep end of the pool, right?
Yes.
Because here's a big one. Number 4, if you're going to make this year the best year it's ever been financially, you're going to have to save money wisely. Now, when we start talking about saving money, it has all kinds of implications. And so I really want to tee it up for you, George, because number one, if you're going to save money, you can't do it without planning your spending. I love, people sometimes don't like the word budget. Sometimes people think the word budget is a curse word. Oh, here you go. No. A budget is so important. A budget is telling your money where to go instead of waiting to the end of the month and wondering where it went,
Right.
right? And if you are going to wait until you pay off your bills and all of that to start saving, guess what? You will never save. And so there's lots of different ways for you to look at it, lots of different ways for you to think about your budget. George is going to get into some of those things. But for years, I've often taught the 10-10-80 principle, which is something that John D. Rockefeller passed down to his kids. John D. Rockefeller, if you don't know, was the Bill Gates or the Elon Musk of yesterday. He would be equivalent.
These guys are richer.
Was
Actually, he's richer.
was the wealthiest man in the world at one point. And the 10-10-80 principle was give God the first 10%, pay yourself 10%, and live off the 80. And the principle there is you want to make sure that your budget creates margin. George, we did a separate episode. I was going to say we did a whole separate talk on tithing, which we did, but we did a whole separate podcast episode on this principle in the Old Testament with Naomi and Ruth and Boaz about not gleaning to the edge of your field. And what that means is you need to have margin. So when you plan your spending, if you're spending everything that comes in, then that means you got to make changes because you have to have intentional plans to save. George, take us to the deep end of the pool on this, bro.
Right. So first of all, everything you said was actually excellent in that area. So Pastor Van came out to Los Angeles, and we actually went to a football game.
Yeah.
So I want to let you guys know, if you got in this football season right now. So one of the things is that you're saying about how to save money. So on a football team, they have an offense and they got a defense.
Come on.
And you know what they say? They say defense wins championships.
Yeah.
George, why are you talking about that? We're talking about saving money. Actually, saving money is defense. And if you want to do really well, if you look at people that are incredibly successful, they have good defense. That's true in sports, whether it's football, whether it's in basketball, whether it's in any sport, baseball, any sport. But you also want to have good defense with your finances. That means you know where your money goes. Imagine just having a pitcher of water and it's being filled when that's all the money that you receive. And then just having a whole bunch of holes where it just all leaks out. Good defense is that you just scoop it out and you're giving it to people as opposed to them doing that. You said the 10-10-80 rule, which is good. And also you mentioned business books. If you look at all business books, they all tell you that you should, when they say about generosity and giving, but then they all say that you should take first and second, and you should start investing and saving in your own money. In other words, so that you're learning how to invest in yourself.
Yes.
That's also a self-esteem issue. You learn to invest in yourself. That's why when you save 10%, because then the 80 is spend. And then I wanted to lay this on you right now in 2024, because later on you flip it where you only give away a certain percentage. Me and my wife actually have a meeting in December. We decide how much we're going to give away during the year. This is how much we spend on schooling. This is how much we're doing giving first. Then we have what we're doing also, how much we're investing, but we're typically just ringing up for what we did the year before. And then also I asked with my employees how much I'm going to, we already bonus them out and everything like that. And then also we look at then how much are we just going to spend? Mm-hmm. So then that number eventually gets below 50%. You don't just spend everything you have. So you start off, some people start off spending 100% of what you have, which doesn't work.
Yep.
Because then what happens is everyone already knows, and we're done talking about this because there was inflation. And then also something snap, crackles, or pops, right? Something breaks down or something. If you don't save money for that, you have to put it on, sorry to cuss, plastic crack, which is credit cards, because you don't have the money. So then what happens is you have to at least save 10% of your income just to break even. Then you start getting to have it at 20%, 30%. So that's just the starting block, and then you get it. But you want to have good defense by going through the fundamentals of having a budget and then saving a certain amount every month, and we call that margin. And we go through that process. And then lastly, if you want some help in going through that, what we do every year? The financial fast. We take 21 days, and the first thing we do is stop wasting money. You guys understand something? I don't, and you've hung out with me and you know this. I don't waste money. I spend money, but I don't waste it. And also I invest it. So in doing that. So that's a great start, is making sure we don't waste money. So we stop that immediately and begin to save.
Thank you for listening to the Freedom Podcast. If you find inspiration, education, or fulfillment in our episodes, consider becoming a partner. Your donation ensures that we will continue delivering quality content alongside some of today's leading experts. Connect with us by becoming a Freedom Friend, a Freedom Champion, or a Freedom Funder. Together, we will continue to produce content that provides hope and healing. Thank you. Your generosity is appreciated.
Well, George, we've gotten through 4 of the 8. And, we're out of time, not out of content. But you know what? To all of our Freedom Podcast and Financial Freedom Podcast partners, we're going to get into a little bit more in the overtime bonus content, because we want to talk about how you can keep good records, how you can plan your spending, set up repayment plans, and then commit it all to God. Those are the remaining ones that we're going to get into. But I want to thank you for being a part of this podcast episode. You can always follow us, like this podcast. If this podcast has added any value to your life, let us know. Reach out to us. You can find out more information about the Freedom Podcast by going out to vanmoody.org. You can find out more about George Thompson by going where, George?
To georgebthompson.com.
Excellent. And we hope that you've been blessed. We hope that you would share this podcast episode with friends and family. Hope you would consider partnering with us, getting access to bonus content, and being really the first to know about the whereabouts and George and myself and all of the great things that we have in store in 2024 with this incredible podcast. So listen, thanks for being with us. And we hope to join together again on this next episode of the Financial Freedom Podcast. Take care.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Freedom Podcast. For a broader range of topics, go to Van Moody's YouTube page or visit twccc.org.